Hi there. Welcome to Code the Future, where we sit down with the innovators and leaders from across industries who are shaping our software defined future. Today, we have a guest who's been at the forefront of medical technology innovation for decades. With me is Stéphane Lavallée, the president of MinMax Medical, who has more than 200 patents to his name and is renowned for his groundbreaking work in the field of surgical robotics. And at a time where we have an aging population in most Western countries around the world and a shortage of doctors, surgical robotics are not just a nice to have, they're a necessity. Stéphane, welcome to the show.
Hello, Matt. My
Perfect.
great pleasure to participate to this interview.
Excellent. So why don't we start there? Maybe, for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, you can give us a sense in terms of, if you think about the current operating theater within a hospital, what are some of the different surgical robotic applications that are being used today?
Uh, I think robotics is really invading the operating room in the sense that it's penetrating progressively all specialties. But the dominant ones has been, of course, general surgery and urology, etc., with the presence of intuitive surgical, the big leader, but also orthopedics, in particular knee surgery with the placement of prostheses, as well as spine surgery with minimally invasive spine surgery. But again, it's really progressively invading. I think I don't know a domain where there is not at least a project or a startup.
That's amazing. And so what inspired you to get into the field? And perhaps you can talk maybe about a project that you're the most proud of in terms of bringing it to market.
Yeah, maybe. So my story was I'm a young engineer. I started in 1986, and a great surgeon in Grenoble Hospital in France asked me to help him because he has to place electrodes in the brain. He's basically inventing a deep brain stimulation to stop Parkinson tremor. His name is Professor Benabid. And he has a friend who has a robotic company, and he said, "Can we do something to help me to place my electrodes?" I'm a beginner. I know nothing about robotics. I know nothing about medical domain. At that time, nothing exists like FDA approval the way it is today. There is no CE marking in France. So I say, yes, I go. And I jump. And 3 years after, we have a robot and we do the first patient in 1989. And it was fantastic, for me because I'm a young engineer and
Right.
I basically run the program of the robot during the surgery. And when we find the right spot in the brain, the patient is awakened. He has a glass in his hands, and he has tremor like this. And when you find the spot, it stops immediately like this. Oh my
Amazing.
God! You cure the patient in front of your eyes if you have done a good job. I say, oh my God, that's what I want to do with my life. And that's what I did.
So that was a light bulb moment. That's fascinating that
Yeah.
your first experience was brain surgery. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Deep
Wow.
brain stimulation. Yes.
So you didn't start out with training wheels, I guess, eh? You went right to the hardest thing.
Yeah. I just took a book, robotics, page one, open the book
Yeah.
and then go from there. And
Yeah.
nobody was developing something similar at that time. I was considered as someone crazy by many people, seriously. Nobody was believing at that time, in surgical robotics. I remember I made an interview on a French TV. And during the interview, they were asking, would you like to be operated with a robot? It was clearly no. And at the end of the interview, it was even less, a disaster.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe we can spend a moment there talking about like what is the how do you train surgeons with, robotic applications? What is the learning curve like? I mean,
Um, so I have to explain first my model because
yeah.
my model is that I create startups and I like to sell startups early stage to large companies, the strategics. So because I consider that this is a waste of money for a startup to try to do sales and marketing and training. So this task of training is usually done by the big companies, the strategics, which acquire my startups.
Okay.
So, and they each have their own philosophy, strategy. That's definitely something important and great, because with robotics, we really create a value for those companies. Typically, the big implant companies, when they have a robot, they bring something fresh, new. They have new stories to tell to the surgeons. So, and the training plays a big role. But usually they come and they train, but they also support some cases, at least at the beginning. So there is definitely a key element in the training.
So I mean, when I think about surgical robotics, I keep coming back to this line, every second counts, right? But it's not just every second counts, it's the milliseconds that count and the millimeters, right? There's absolutely no room for error when you're talking about using these sorts of applications within an operating theater. And I guess I'm curious sort of how do you balance that the importance of innovation with those very real realities of, safety, security, reliability, all those things that are absolutely crucial to having that successful outcome while still having that innovation.
Yeah. No, for sure. You cannot balance. Safety, security is a must-have. You cannot make a trade-off on those elements. Of course, you do a risk analysis with probabilities, but it has to be very, very well controlled in terms of the major risk in particular. So you do innovation only if you control, of course, the safety. And for that, you need two things. You need good people and you need good tools.
Right, right.
So, and maybe because of this podcast, you are going to ask me what tool do we use, and in particular the fact that we use QNX for all our robots nowadays. It really plays a big role, and I have no shares in QNX. I can tell that. So it has helped us a lot, especially in all the latest products
Mm,
that we have developed. Because yeah, as you said, safety, accuracy are super critical. So we cannot make again a trade-off on those things, especially when we know that those tools exist. So we use them, and they help us a lot, because it's of course all our products are real time,
right.
and in particular you need to make a great synchronization between the tracking systems that you have
Mhm.
and the robotic system that you have. The synchronization is, of course, key, with low latency, but
Right.
most importantly, the latency must be controlled. If you do not control the latency, it does not work. That's why we need to use real-time operating systems such as QNX. No question for that. But
Of
and
course.
again, the other key aspect is really people. In Grenoble, in France, we have the chance that we have now a hub for surgical robotics and digital surgery. With all the startups I have created, I counted now 700 employees.
Wow.
95% are engineers or PhD. And in total, in Grenoble, it's more than 1,000 of people. And if I count all the everything, the universities and so on, it's probably 2,000 of
Yeah.
people. So you have a very good reservoir of those key resources, because it's a new domain. It's a true domain. It's not like automotive industry. It's not like a nuclear industry. It's really a specific domain. It's super specific in the sense that you need to understand not only the technology, but also very well the applications. So you have to go to the OR. I insist that all my employees, they have to go in the OR, even if they do some small software or low-level development. Go to the OR. You must understand the, the, the life of our
Right.
customers, the surgeon. They have a huge pressure on their shoulders. You must fit that so that when you develop something, uh, you will very quickly understand that ergonomics is number one. The usability is really number one. You need to feel that so that you must do really simple products. And for instance, that's why we need to automate more and more of those functions in our systems to reduce the load, the mental load at least for the surgeon. And that's always a challenge. That's why we need to have those talents who must understand what does it mean, why I'm doing that. It will guide you towards a good development. So the talents we have in Grenoble is key, and the tools that we have now developed externally with companies like QNX, but also internally with our own software methodologies. Yeah, we have a lot of quality rules that have been proven across multiple startups. And the quality, there is no problem. This is something we exchange between the different startups. There is no IP there. So that's, I think, a very efficient way to answer the questions also of safety and efficiency.
And I love that philosophy you shared around, how it's absolutely critical for everyone that you
Yeah.
work with to ensure that they actually go to an operating room or an operating theater so that they can see in the flesh the kinds of problems that they're looking to build applications to help solve, right? Like I'm sure a lot of people come back from those situations and those experiences somewhat changed and with a new appreciation for the power of what you are looking to do in terms of improving patient outcomes or whatnot, right? And just on the topic of safety, I'd love to talk a little bit about, trust and education. So we recently commissioned a survey of 1,000 um, technology executives across various industries, healthcare, medical devices, heavy machinery, automotive, and whatnot. And we asked them about their perception of, working alongside or working with robotics applications. And the findings were quite interesting. So it revealed like the majority of people are quite comfortable using robotics, working alongside, robotics applications, particularly for more menial tasks, right? Logistics and deliveries, that kind of stuff. The one area that there was a real barrier of trust was medical for some reason. For whatever reason, people are a lot less trusting of interacting with or working alongside robots. I mean, does that surprise you? And I guess, how do you think about sort of building trust and making sure that whether you're
Hmm.
a surgeon or a
Yeah.
patient, that you're
Yeah.
happy going under the knife, the robotic knife, so to speak?
Yeah. No, honestly, I'm surprised because I feel the opposite. I hear that patients want robots. That again, it's a big change. When I started, I told you my story when I did a
Right.
TV show in the early 90s. Nobody wanted a robot. It was, no, 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 we're afraid. What is this? And so on. Even when they saw the robot functioning at Grenoble Hospital and so on. No, it was a no. Today, I have impression it's a big yes. I think Intuitive Surgical, has done a great job. They paved the way for the trust because thanks to them, thanks to the fact that they really educated the patient by providing good messages about the reduction of invasivity and the dexterity of the surgeon and so on. I think patients want robots everywhere now. That's my experience. We see hospitals who want to buy robot to bring more patients.
Yeah.
The hospital administration, they know that patients want robots, and honestly, they are right because robots bring reliability,
Right.
dexterity for some type of robots, but of course, accuracy, precision, and that's the key. That's all my life.
Yeah.
I cannot accept today surgical mistakes that we could have avoided with robots. So and patients are aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they all prefer robot, and again, I think they are right because, of course, you always need a good surgeon, number
Yes.
one. But if you have a good surgeon with a good robot, that's definitely the best chances of success for your surgery.
Of
It,
course. Of course.
let's be careful. That we must deliver the good messages. Robots do not eliminate the mistakes and the errors. There are always issues with whatever. The
Yeah.
planes can crash, right? So
Hmm.
there are always issues, but the goal is to reduce those errors, reduce, reduce, reduce. That's a long quest. In addition to provide benefits, for sure, the main benefit is to do surgery less and less invasively, of course. That's definitely the first advantage that patients can perceive.
One of the things I'd love to get your perspective on is, how do you envision the integration of surgical robotics with other emerging technologies like teleoperation and
Mhm.
augmented reality? I think about the amount of places that, are rural, remote, that they're
Oh,
not in a center like Grenoble that has this hub, this concentration of, experts within their field.
yeah.
There's a lot of places that just don't have access to doctors, right? So how do you sort of see surgical robotics playing within that space in terms of democratizing care and democratizing, the best possible care regardless of, wherever you are in the world?
No, democratizing care is definitely one of the big targets. You're right. Also, it's not only over the world, it's also in one hospital between different surgeons. Again, you have a junior, you have a senior experienced. So you want to bring the same chances for the patients if they are operated by the junior or by the senior. That's really key. And that really works. We clearly see that we raise the level of all those surgeons, to the level of something deterministic, with A becomes B becomes C and so on. So it's very rational, very clear. And concerning the first part of your question, the integration of augmented reality and telesurgery, we we have to be careful. Augmented reality, definitely yes. It's just a way that some surgeons prefer for visualization. So it brings a lot of benefits, but it has a cost in the sense that you have to wear something on your head. Um, so for me, it's a question of surgeon preference. Some surgeons like it, some surgeons hate it. In the sense, hate it to wear it for all the day. So what we like to do is offer options.
Yeah.
Telesurgery, I think we have to be careful because each time I say I do surgical robotics to my taxi driver, he tells me, "Oh, you do surgery at distance." No, sorry, sir. This does not exist. This is a myth. Telesurgery, like Da Vinci, is in the same operating room. Maybe
Uh-huh.
one day it will exist for sure, but this is not the goal today. The goal is we have millions, tens of millions of patients to operate, and we want them to go very well, the best possible, with the less failures possible, with the best success, with the less minimal invasive surgery possible, etc., etc. That's our target. The
Yeah.
target is not to have a surgeon in in Mexico and to operate someone in India.
Yeah.
That's it does not exist. It's something,
Yeah.
that's a myth. I don't know why everybody believe in that. There have been some spectacular operations. It has existed, of course, but it was just a demonstration, and it struck the the spirit, the mindset of peoples so much that that now they, even 20 years after, uh, they still think this is the way we do surgical robotics.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. Let's be serious. The surgeon is still in the room. There is a boss. There is a pilot in the plane. and it brings you to destination. But
Yeah.
it's not far away.
Well, I
For some
appreciate.
applications, it will come. For some applications, there will
Right.
be some telesurgery or telemedicine, augmented devices, and so on. Maybe.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate you setting the record straight on that, and I think, um, as someone who started out with brain surgery as their first application, we'll trust you, and it's great to get those insights in terms of what that best possible outcome looks like. Before we press pause, I'd love to get a sense from you. We've talked a lot about sort of the future, or whatever. Looking back over the course of your career, is there one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self
Mhm.
starting out in the industry? If you knew now,
Yeah.
what would you say?
So, yeah, but maybe with all my background, I think people can be inspired by the idea of really creating startups very, very focused. Uh, my mistake is that I started with very broad spectrum, targeting too many things in one startup. So the key is really the focus. For instance, I have a company named Extremis Robotics, which is focused only on robotics for foot and ankle surgery,
Hmm.
and that's already a lot. The plate is already full.
Yeah.
So I think that's really key. Of course, the second advice is still a war of technology. So just an idea on the usage is not sufficient. You need really to bring technology to be successful, something disruptive. That's why I have now this company, Minmax Medical, where we have a unique robot, which is really a breakthrough that will outdate existing robots with a novel tracking technology, which is truly minimally invasive that will outdate also optical tracking, for example, that has been used for several decades. So the key technologies, they are essential. Try to really bring your company with something disruptive. Another point is really uh, in our domain, I recommend to follow this model of selling your startup as soon as possible, as soon as you have the FDA approval, and not trying to do sales and marketing with a dream because you are going to waste money and for something that of course will create value, but you are also going to invest a lot. So the equation is not so good at that time. I think the best pick is really target the FDA approval, but for that, bring a partnership with a strategics as soon as possible in your equation because those guys are key. They know very well the market better than you. They have strategy that are maybe not the same as the one you have imagined. So what do you want? You want to make them successful. So you have really to uh, talk to them as soon as possible. That's really the key for success, I think. Yeah, focus, technology, relationship, early stage with strategics.
Excellent. Great advice, and from someone who's spent their entire career in the field, I think, lots of people will appreciate you sharing those insights. So, thanks so much for speaking with us today, Stéphane. Really appreciate it. Excited to see, where you go next in this field.
Thank you, Matt.